All right, everyone. I am back with another after watch for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, episode 2. All right. I was having some issues with my chat. I did finally get it posting up there. For some reason, like the first one never shows up. I tried making sure it was signed in before I started posting anything. It still didn't show up. And I'm not hearing any of the chimes. I don't know when I go back and listen to the live stream if it will actually play on there. But I'll find out later. I did have a thing where when I did my Handmaid's Tale reading last time, I had turned off the system sounds on my computer, which it's still playing some of them, but it wasn't playing all of them. And it wasn't playing chats. It wasn't playing certain other things. So I tried to turn that back on, but I also turned the themed Windows sounds off, and it's still not right. I'll have to figure it out later. But anyway, let's talk about this episode. So I'll start out with a kind of gist of what happened in the episode. Um, I'm going by notes on my phone. I actually wrote notes this time, which I will try to keep up with. After that, we'll watch a trailer for the coming episode, and we can talk a little bit about that. So that way I'll actually make sure that I do talk about what I think might be going on in the next episode. Having a trailer will help out because I don't remember the book well enough to kind of know exactly what's coming up. So, since it does seem like they're sticking fairly well to the book, it will give me some things to go off of and some ideas to jumble around in my head a little bit. And after we play the trailer and talk about that, then I will go on with my favorites and least favorites. My VIP, I do not have a piece of shit this time, but it's more like somebody doing stupid shit. That kind of thing. So I'm not going to call them a piece of shit, but they were not behaving correctly in my opinion. All right. And favorite scene and least favorite scene. Then, let me see if it's still up here. There was something that I saw that I thought I might want to play for an intermission. I have not watched it. I haven't watched the trailer either. So these are going to be fresh, like first time I've watched them. So that way, if I go for an intermission, I can go grab something to eat, come back, and finish watching whatever it is. Although I haven't watched it, so I may want to watch the whole thing. So maybe I'll start it out on the be right back screen and then switch it to intermission. But I gotta find what I was looking for. I know it was around 15 minutes, which I know is a lot of time, but it'll be towards the end of the live stream. So it shouldn't be that bad, but that's only if I find it. I'm not seeing it, so I might not do it. Because I'm not going to go out of my way to try to find it. And some of those things I can play on a live stream, and I won't get in any trouble or get any copyright violations or anything like that. But some of them I will, so it would be a matter. It looked like something that I don't think I would get a copyright violation for, but I can't be 100% sure of that. I can never be 100% sure. Yeah, I don't think it's on here. It was on there earlier. Because these are all episode breakdowns I'm seeing on here, and that is not what I was going to show. I really thought I had something there. All right, well, anyway, I think for right now, let's go ahead. We'll talk about the gist of the episode. And I will try to kind of stick with my notes without sounding like I'm reading the whole thing. Okay, so the previous episode, Dunk had already been unsuccessful at trying to get this person to vouch for him. And this episode, he's like determined. He is persistent. He is still like very shy and socially awkward and maybe not the brightest tool in the shed, but he's persistent. He is going to keep trying even if it's uncomfortable, even if he's not good at talking to people. He's still persisting. And so we see him persist with trying to push somebody else to see if somebody else recognizes his knight so that they can vouch for him so that he can get in the lists. And then after he finally finds somebody who's able to vouch for him, he gets on the lists and they're like, you know what? You need some new fucking family assemblage here, like symbolism and stuff. So you might want to change that shield that you've got there. So he goes to Tansel Too Tall to get his shield painted with a new family emblem. And between him and Egg and a little bit Tansel, they are able to come up with an idea for a design for the shield. And then he goes and he speaks to the armorer. He's got to get some armor done. And so we'll talk a little bit later about how that goes. But this is kind of the gist. He's dealing with the things that he wasn't able to get taken care of last episode. He's getting it done. We also get some more story about Sir Arlen Pennytree's life. So we get some more background. We get a little bit more meat on some of these characters, which is nice. And he goes and takes care of what he needs to do to prepare for being in the lists tomorrow. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to watch this this trailer. Let me see. I'll put it here. All right. And hopefully everybody can hear everything. Hopefully I have all the sound set up right. I tried to make sure it's set up right.
Good night, staying as your squire after the tournament. Come on!
The squire must be strong.
Move!
Oh, Meg, I can't even drink a pint of ale.
Yeah, because it's disgusting.
Oh, it's not disgusting.
It's disgusting.
He's a kid. He doesn't need to be drinking ale yet.
Have you chosen an opponent yet? I suppose Aerion and I are quite equally matched.
Aerion's vain and cruel. The Targaryens tyrants who burned our lands, enslaved our people. They're incestuous aliens, Duncan.
The dragon don't never lose.
Fetch my armor.
Now?
Aye, now.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my Game of Thrones Night of the Seven Kingdoms Episode 3 trailer video. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs, references to the books from this, so we'll break it all down. Probably the real question on people's minds is...
No, we're not... I just wanted to watch the trailer. I thought that's all it was. Okay, so we're done with the trailer. We will not watch that. I don't think so. Let me make sure. Episode 3 trailer. Yeah, that'll be fine. Good enough. Let's go back to the live scene. All right. I like that. That sounds like a good start. The idea of him trying to match himself up with Aerion, not appealing to me. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be the big bad in this whole storyline. So, yeah, fun. Gosh. And then there was that one younger kid that they showed. I don't know who that is. I have no idea. And, the comment he made about Egg, it needs to be strong and all that stuff. Yeah, but, like, Egg already has a lot of qualities that I think make him good. Like, he completely freaking took care of this guy's stuff without being asked, even when he was told that he wasn't going to be a squire. Very knowledgeable about that stuff. So even though he's not strong, you can build up to that, training, work, experience, all of that. That will help. The idea of him needing to be able to take down some ale, he's pretty young, even for there, and then I would be like, okay, give him a couple years, and then maybe worry about working him up to be able to handle some ale. It's not considered a very healthy choice now, but back in the day, there were benefits for drinking alcohol and stuff like that. Like sometimes the water itself was toxic, like poison, chemicals in it. Like just germs and bacteria and things like that you don't always know if the water is safe. And the alcohol itself, because of what alcohol is and what alcohol does, sometimes was considered a safer bet than drinking the local water. So anyway, let's see. Okay, now we're gonna do some like favorites and less favorites. Okay, so hold on just one sec. I have to check something really quick because I gotta verify the name of somebody. Because yeah. No, not that one. Okay, let's do this. I'm not good at remembering names. Sometimes even after I have started to memorize them a little bit, I'll like retain them for a little while, and then if I go away for a while, I might forget the names again. Sometimes even if I do know the names fairly well, I'll draw a blank. So I needed to make sure that I had the right name, which I do not. I do not have the right name. So let's see. Who is it I am looking for? Okay. Yeah, that's okay. So now I've got the right name. Okay, so for the VIP, and the VIP is who I was looking for the name of. Baelor Targaryen. So I put Baelor Targaryen. I thought the way that he handled that whole situation with Dunk coming in, Dunk was a kind of like intruding into a royal conversation, into a part of the castle, I believe, that he probably shouldn't have been in. It really could have been very dangerous for him. It could have been very bad for him. But the way that Baelor Targaryen handled the whole thing, what do you call it? It just made everything better. Like he started out, trying to like assert his authority and everything, and it looked like it might not go very well for Dunk. But then once Dunk started really like explaining himself and getting his what he wanted to say out, and he was willing, and Baelor was willing to listen. Like, that was one thing that I was very happy about, because a lot of those people in those positions, they're not going to be willing to listen to somebody just like intruding in on their royal conversations and start like trying to push some issue that when it's not the time and it's not the place, at least to them. So yeah, he handled the situation well. Dunk took a little while. He was his socially awkward self and had a little bit of trouble getting it out, but he did it. He did get out what he needed to say, slowly, in a like kind of bumbling way, got the story out about how he was trying to get this guy to vouch for him and he just refused. But he really needs somebody to please remember Sir Arlen Pennytree and vouch for him. And then he had to like proceed to give the story about who this was, why you might remember him. And finally Baelor was like, yeah, he starts like spouting off stuff about the guy, and they kind of start bouncing off of each other, so they get a good conversation going. And Baelor actually remembers a lot of stuff. And this was one of the things that I really liked about him. When some of the people that were there were like, why are you even humoring this guy? Like, why do you even know all this stuff about this, his name or anything? And he's like, it's very important for me to get to know my people. Like, this is an important thing. And I thought that was great. I thought he did very well. The way that he talked to him about the stuff that he did remember about it was just like, it was so nonchalant and like casual and everything, which I liked, because at first I was like, oh no, Dunk is doing something really stupid. He's going to get himself in trouble. And Baelor just like kind of neutralized that, and he stopped being all uber assertive, and he started like having an actual conversation with this guy in a very like down to earth, matter of fact manner. I really liked that about him. Really liked that about his character. So that was my VIP for the episode. Now, we're not doing a piece of shit, like I said earlier. We're doing the person that was doing stupid things throughout the whole episode. Egg is supposed to be hiding from his family. So that was the other thing I didn't talk about in the gist. Egg is trying to hide from his family, and we do find that out in the episode. I think fairly early in the episode, we find out that he's trying to hide from his family. His family is looking for him. His family is also looking for another brother. I don't know if Egg knows that they're also looking for this other brother, but he knows they're looking for him. And he keeps showing up in broad daylight when he knows his family has already gotten there to Ashford. He knows that they're looking for him. They probably have people out looking for him, and he's showing up in the tents where these freaking plays are going on. He's showing up in, in all these different areas where like somebody could see him. Somebody could spot him that's from the royal family, or that knows the royal family, or has been around the royal family, that might know a little bit better what he looks like and what he acts like, things like that, and might spot him. I get that in situations like that, often if you're not really like paying attention, you may not realize that the kid's dressed in freaking rough spun clothing. He's got his hair shaved off or whatever. You might not, but it takes one person. It takes one person noticing something about this kid that seems like that like triggers something, and they might realize maybe this is the missing freaking Targaryen kid. So that he kept doing that, I was just like, really? Like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And that brings me to my least favorite scene. When, like, the scene itself was heartfelt and everything. I felt that, like, that was nice about it. But it really disturbed me that this kid asked to be lifted up. So he gets on top of already tall Dunk's shoulders. So he's above everybody else. Yes, it's dark. Yes, there's poor lighting. Yes, there's a big situation, but you're making it so that you are the person in the crowd that is sticking out more than anybody. And even though the lighting is poor, there is still some lighting. And you are right across from your family. Like, you're putting a target on yourself. Like if you don't want to be found, this is not how you do it. Getting up on somebody's shoulder in a big crowd, in a big crowded event, so that you are the main person that is going to be seen in that crowd. That was like, really? What are you thinking, Egg? Yeah, that was my my least favorite scene. All right, so what do we have next? Favorite scene. Okay, Dunk's trying to get his shield ready. He's trying to get armor ready because he has no armor yet. His shield's in bad condition and it needs a new family symbol on it. So he's taking care of that, and now he's over talking to the armorer, and the armorer himself, he feels bad for Egg. But he also doesn't want to, like, lose money. He can't depend on somebody saying, oh, yeah, I intend on winning this. Like, how many people have said something like that? So, yeah, he feels bad. And he tries to come up with options for him to, like, at least cut down the cost. But Dunk is like, that's still, like, way more than I have. And he's like, I can't sell you this stuff for that cheap. I need to be able to make money off of what I'm doing. And then Eggs suggests that he sell him some smaller armor that wouldn't fit on him. And he's like, no, because I only sell my own stuff. I do not sell other people's crap. Basically, like, he has his own style. He has his own way that he does stuff. He wants it done right, but without all the frills and stuff. So yeah, when he gets to that part where he realizes Dunk just does not have the money, and buying this armor and selling it to somebody else isn't going to work for him. But he feels bad. He notices that Dunk is in a position where he just does not have the money, and Dunk's like, I will win this list. And he's like, yeah. and what is it? I said, the remarks and looks every time Dunk suggests that he will get the money by winning, just priceless. So that was part of what I liked was the, it just feeds off that idea. Every time he says he has no intention of losing, he's going to win, he's going to have the money, and they're like, yeah, I've heard that line before. How many times have I heard it? But then he comes up with an idea. I'm not going to sell your used armor that somebody else built, but I could take it and make armor with it. I can melt it down. So maybe you won't get that much for it, but you'll get something. And then that way I can make you some armor without feeling like I'm going to totally like lose out on my business because I'm making you armor for free or making it for you for dirt cheap where I'm not going to make anything. So that was good. I enjoyed that. All right. Now I was going to do that intermission. I was pretty sure I made a point not to get out of the browser and not change the browser, but somehow that thing that I was going to show doesn't seem to be there. So I guess no intermission. Oh, I found it. Okay. So let's hope this goes through. This is by the Morning Throners. That's the channel on YouTube. It says A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. No, it's it says the Targaryen family tree for A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I like looking at this family tree stuff. I like looking at histories and geography and things like that. I do this for Handmaid's Tale sometimes too. I don't do a lot of content on that kind of stuff because it takes quite a while. And it takes a lot of time outside of the stuff that I routinely try to do. But it's already made by somebody else. Hopefully it keeps going. If I notice any problems with the stream, like not going anymore, I'll stop it and restart, I guess. I should probably double check my live though and make sure that it is going all right. And it looks like it is. Okay, so I'll leave that on that page. And then I will go back here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this on Be Right Back for a minute because I need to get some food. All right? It shouldn't take me long. I'll get a little bit of food and come back. I will put on this intermission. And when the intermission is going, you're not going to see my face, but you can hear me. So this is my intermission screen. All right, but I'm going to put it on Be Right Back. I will go and get a little bit of food. I'll come right back, and then I will start this 15-minute, 24-second, which it'll probably be less than that because I don't watch the credits and everything. Targaryen family tree for A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, because I have been wondering about that. Like what is the family tree going on right now at that point in time? Because that's not like a typical point in time of the other stories that we've watched or read on Game of Thrones universe. All right, so I will be right back. right, everybody, I'm back in here. Let's go ahead and put this intermission on. I will be in the background, so if I want to talk about anything, I can. But you won't see my pretty face. Okay, intermission. Let's see. We gotta go up here. Oh, no, not up here. Go here. Hopefully this is good.
Good morning, Westeros.
It definitely needs to be turned down.
And welcome to this short little video that I wanted to throw together real quick and get out alongside the first episode of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
And hopefully,
in this video, we'll take a completely non-spoiler look
somebody
at
else's
the
stuff
Targaryen
up here.
family tree, specifically for the Targaryens that are alive during the timeline of the new show, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. To those who might not know me, my name is Nelson. I'm from the Morning Throners podcast. We normally do a chapter-by-chapter or episode-by-episode podcast on all the Game of Thrones books and shows.
So Nelson
Myself
from Morning
personally, I am a
Thrones,
huge fan of the Seven Kingdoms novellas.
That is
which are
who's
the novellas
done this content.
The new show is based on. This first novella, the novella called The Hedge Knight that this first season is based on, might be my favorite book of all time. It's definitely my favorite of all the Game of Thrones related A Song of Ice and Fire
I will
books.
put a link
And
to
Dunk, the main character of this show, is one of my favorite characters in
the
any
video in
fiction
my
I've ever read.
chat.
So, the main focus of this will be the family tree of the Targaryens. But before we get into that, I want to just quickly set the stage on what the show is about and when it takes place in relation to the other shows. Those of you that know me know I love my timelines. To be quite technical, we're going to hit some actual dates, and then I'll just give you kind of a brief summary. Aegon's conquest is 0 AC. That's what AC is supposed to mean. After conquest, so Aegon takes over, that is 0 after conquest.
Back to this.
The House of the Dragon show. The very opening scene we see there where there's that council with the old King Jaehaerys where they pick the Viserys king. That takes place in 101 AC, so pretty much exactly 100 years after Aegon's conquest. The main bulk of House of the Dragon focuses on a war called the Dance of the Dragons. That really kicks off in 129 AC. So that's where the bulk of the show takes place. Right. Now, the next 2 points I'm going to throw up are not necessarily things that most people might know of, but just bear with me.
I am eating a hot dog.
A little bit later. In 184 AC, Aegon IV dies. He's just a king, Aegon IV, one of the kings, and Daeron II is named king. And in 196 AC, the Blackfire
We don't do a
Rebellion
lot of hot dogs
happens.
In this house, but
basically there is a
we
rebellion
do usually
against
do
that King Daeron
like cheddar brats,
II, who is named king. We'll talk about this a little bit later, and it's not
And
super
the last
important
time I
for
had
the show.
cheddar
We're just gonna
brats,
touch on it. But Daeron
I
II
made them
is
on
king
these
at this time,
whole
at the
grain
time when this
buns,
takes place.
and my
so
kid
because
didn't
this
like the
rebellion
buns.
is kind of recent history
So
that
I
will probably
took
get brought up.
the wieners out, put them
Tony
on
Ashford Meadow, the
white
thing that this
buns,
show is
and
focused
I
around
decided
is
I would
becoming a
eat
Night of the Seven Kingdoms show. That takes place in
hot
209
dogs later
AC.
on with the buns.
And then to catch us up with Game of Thrones stuff, Robert Baratheon was named king in 283
'Cause we were out of
AC.
cheddar
That's the end of
brats.
his rebellion. That's again going to be quite a few years before the show actually starts, but I think most people who know Game of Thrones will be familiar with that. And then the very first chapter of A Song of Ice and Fire and the very first scene of the show Game of Thrones where they're going to the wall, that takes place in 297 AC, the end of 297 AC. Most of the first Game of Thrones book takes place in 298 AC. So that's the technical timeline. A brief overview, kind of like a good way to look at it is Aegon's conquest. We haven't seen that on screen yet, but that's basically when the Targaryens took over, is 0. 100 years after that is the Dance of the Dragons. That's what we see in House of the Dragon. 100 years after that is this show. Then 100 years after that is Game of Thrones. So it's not quite, but it's close. You're going to be off by a decade or 2 here or there, but about every 100 years is so far the shows we've got. Okay, so now that we know where this show takes place in relation to the other ones, let's just set the stage a little bit. This show will follow a main character called Dunk, the lowly hedge knight. If you don't know exactly what a hedge knight is, that's okay. I'm sure they'll explain it in the show. For now, I think this clip from the trailer will sum it up close enough.
Now it's all quiet.
So the hedge knight we'll be following in the show is a fella named Dunk, a lovable lunk who I personally can't wait to see on screen, alongside his wise-mouthed little squire Egg. The main focus of this first season, as shown in the trailers, will be a single tourney. It's a quaint little castle called Ashford. So unlike Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, this show has a much smaller scale. And the whole show, or most of the show at least, should be from a single perspective, that being of Dunk. And also, this whole season, which is only 6 episodes, should really only cover a couple days, unlike Game of Thrones again and House of the Dragon, which can span years. So, with that background set, why am I making a video about the Targaryen family tree? There are two main reasons. There are quite a few Targaryens that show up at the tournament, and I know keeping the names in relations to each other can be difficult for some of these shows. Secondly, there is a bit of history, specifically the thing I mentioned in the timeline, the Blackfire Rebellion. While not directly related to the events that this show will cover, In-World is a major recent political event that the realm is still pretty sensitive about, and thus I expect it to be mentioned a decent amount. Not too much, but a decent amount. This is slightly interesting for book readers because it's actually not mentioned at all in the first novella, which is what this is based on. However, that's because technically George wrote the first novella pretty early, before he wrote a lot of the other A Song of Ice and Fire books. He actually wrote it before Clash of Kings, which is the second one, so this was his second A Song of Ice and Fire book to be out. And at that point, he just hadn't invented the Blackfire Rebellions, pretty much. So he thought of it later on, and then it becomes extremely important in the next two novellas. So that's why I think that George probably would have mentioned it in this one a little bit if he could have, if he had thought of it at the time. And that's why I think it's good for the show to do it, just to kind of drop some hints for things that'll happen probably in season 2 and 3 of the show. All right, with that all out of the way, let's get into the timeline. I'm trying to keep this video pretty short, and I don't expect anyone to memorize all this stuff. So feel free to take a screenshot or come back to the video after an episode or two, and I think some of this might make a bit more sense. All right, so here we are with the timeline. Doesn't look too bad, and I'm about to actually clean it up, so it's going to get even easier to look at. However, I'm then going to make it a little bit messier. So let's start off here. Current king is Daeron II. He's at the top here. Now, why Daeron II's family is important is because 2 of his sons and several of his grandchildren attend the tournament. So now let's take a look at who is going to attend the tournament. I'll say the 2 brothers that do are Baelor and Maekar, the eldest and youngest. These 2 in the middle, while important, not important for this story, so we're going to remove them from this family tree real quick just to simplify things. So Aerys, he's going away, so is Rhaegal, along with his wife and children. Okay, so we've trimmed the timeline down to just Baelor, Maekar, wives, and children. The ones that I've circled with this yellow circle, maybe I
which is interesting because he wrote family tree on the title.
The ones with the circles are characters that we should see. They should be in the show. They're all in the novella. Baelor, Maekar, siblings, get along, but there's kind of, the way I take it is probably like a little bit of sibling rivalry. Neither of them should be competing, but their children will probably be competing in the tournament. Again, this is just kind of like a little tournament. I'm not going to say what it's celebrating or what it's why they're throwing the tournament. And it's not really a spoiler, but again, I'm trying to keep this as spoilers free as possible. But Baelor and Maekar, they're getting older, so they're not taking part. They could. They're definitely fighting age, but they're letting the children do that at this point. So Valar, Aerion, and Daeron should all be participating in jousting at this tournament. I guess the other thing you'll notice if you look at this keenly, one of the children of Maekar I have named Maester Aemon. Again, I don't think that's a spoiler for this show. That is a kind of a cool connection. One of Maekar's children actually is the one that grows up to be Aemon in the Game of Thrones TV show. Now, cool. If you go through and listen to every Maester Aemon scene and listen to everything he says, there might be some spoilery stuff for the Hedge Knight, so I wouldn't do that. I would not go back and watch Game of Thrones, and if you do, just don't pay super specific attention to everything.
I would
Aemon
definitely
says,
go back.
I'm pretty sure there are a few
I've already
name
done it a
drops that
couple
might
times.
spoil some of this and maybe even the future Night of the Seven
I wish I could
Kingdoms
get my
seasons.
youngest kid to watch with me.
And a few of these guys we actually have pictures for already.
I think they would be interested in it if they gave it a chance, but they say they're not interested in this kind of stuff.
Again, nothing crazy with these pictures, but the one thing I will point out here is Baelor, who, again, now you can't really see the names. Let me move the picture actually. Okay, there we go. I've moved the picture so you can see both the name and the picture now. So the one interesting thing I want to point out here is Baelor is a Targaryen. He's the heir. He's the eldest son of Daeron II. He has brown hair. I don't know if we've seen this at all. Are there any Targaryens with brown hair in the House of the Dragon?
Yes.
Not sure. But
there are.
So I guess first point, there should have been a few. They took it out. I think it's fine. It makes it probably confusing for viewers. Why are there, normally if you're used to Targaryens having this white hair, silver hair, why are there a bunch of Targaryens that have brown ones? So I think it's fine. There are reasons for it in the books, but to simplify things, I think it's fine to leave it out. Here, though, Baelor will not have silver hair. Valar, I think, also won't have silver hair. And Daeron, I think, as well won't have silver hair. So the other two that I have circled here that we don't have pictures for, I think they both, what did I just say, will not have silver hair. So just kind of one interesting thing to keep note of is not all the Targaryens in this show will have silver hair. The other thing, as far as the other siblings,
And in the
I
books,
don't know
they
if we can say if they'll
definitely
be here.
don't.
Maester Aemon, I don't think should be. He should probably be at the Citadel at this
There's
point.
several of them
But like
with
as far
other
as
lineage
Matari's
from
or
other families
maybe Valar's wife, Kira
that
Tyros,
not all of the
or
children
maybe even
have
Baelor or
silver hair.
Makar's wives. Who knows? Maybe they might show up in the show. They're not in the books, but they might show up in the show. So the next part of the family tree we're going to take a look at is something I mentioned when we were going over the timeline real quick. And that is what the Blackfire Rebellion is and how that relates to what's going on here. So let me expand this family tree again. Also, I will say that none of this information is really relevant in this season of the show at all. Flat out,
It doesn't
period.
have to be.
However, I expect there to be a decent amount of name drops
probably
for these
good,
people.
but-
So why would they be name dropping all this complicated history that isn't really relevant in the current season of TV we're watching, especially if we're on limited time?
I mean, we
with
got
only
name
6
drops on all kinds of
30-ish
stuff
minute
when we were
episodes?
watching Game of
Well,
Thrones.
it's because the next two novellas, which the show is based on the novellas, the next two novellas do incorporate a lot of this history. Again, the rebellion already happened, so it doesn't take place during the history, but the history is much more important, and you'll see what that means when we get there, and if you know, you know. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, the ones in black, these are Blackfires, or it's not actually that clear cut. The ones in black come from bastard lines of Aegon the Fourth. We look at him, he's kind of the Targaryen in the top middle. I never mentioned, this is kind of color coded. All the light reds are Targaryens. Everything else, I kind of tried to match it to one of their colors in their sigil, the main color of their sigil, if possible. These black squares are Blackfires, descendants of Blackfires, or what we'll call Great Bastards. By Great Bastards, I'm talking about Brendan Rivers and Aegor Rivers, those two black boxes towards the right. So before we get into that, I'll say for the most part, you don't have to worry about the grandchildren of Daeron. So none of Baelor or Makar's children here. When this history was taking place, they were all probably not alive at that point or too young to be relevant in the politics of what's going on. So let's start at the top with Aegon the Fourth. Many of you might know of him if you know anything about Targaryen history. He is one of the, if not the worst, considered probably the worst king. He just slept around a lot, had a lot of bastards, and then on his deathbed, legitimized all his bastards. This ends up causing problems. Specifically, it causes problems with one specific bastard, Daemon, that he bestowed Blackfire to. Blackfire is the sword that has always been passed down to the Targaryen kings. I think we've actually seen it in House of the Dragon. So, he bestows the sword of Blackfire on Daemon at one point, and then later, when Aegon dies, he legitimizes all his bastards on his deathbed. Sometime later, again, it's not right on the heels, we mentioned that on the timeline, it's not right on the heels, but sometime later, the Blackfire Rebellion happens. And basically what that is they decide that Daemon Blackfire should be the rightful king, not Daeron II, who after Aegon dies, Daeron II, who is king at the point of this story, is the king after Aegon dies. So, there's a rebellion, Daeron II clearly
many
wins, but he's still
rebellions
king
in
at
this
the point of
world.
the story, and the Blackfires lose. But it is a pretty big political thing. There are a decent amount of battles, and it did kind of divide the realm. There were a lot of people that did side with the Blackfire side. Brendan
the
Rivers,
realm wasn't
so this
already
black box
divided
kind of
enough.
in the middle, while not
I mean, from
legitimate,
what I recall,
he
after
sides
House of the
and fights
Dragon
on
stuff, the Dance
side
of the Dragons
legitimate Targaryens.
is over.
So although he's a bastard, he doesn't actually fight on the
They
side of the
do
Great Bastards.
manage to
Great
kind of
Bastards,
piece the
again,
kingdom
being
back
the
together so
bastards
that
who were
they're-
legitimized
so
by
that
Aegon the Fourth.
these
So Daemon,
fights are
Brendan Rivers, and Aegor
squelched
Rivers.
for
I think
a
there are
while,
others,
but
other bastards.
meh.
There are definitely other bastards. I think these are always considered the Great Bastards, though, especially the ones relevant for this rebellion. One last little update to this. All right, I threw some circles up again. Different color now. Red. Again, probably not a great color. Very similar to the Targaryen red I used, but whatever. These circles are trying to represent who was heavily involved in the Blackfire Rebellion, right? So again, the Blackfire Rebellion, this moment of history that takes place about 10 years before the events of the show that we're going to be watching. Who was really heavily involved in there? What names would I expect to be name dropped in relation to each other? Pretty much the people circled here. Like I said, Daemon Blackfire, he's the king who rebelled. Aegor Rivers, who's another great bastard. Also, there's two nicknames that I threw up there. Aegor Rivers most of the time goes by Bittersteel. He was pretty much the major supporter of Daemon Blackfire. A lot of people say that Daemon Blackfire never would have rebelled if it wasn't for Bittersteel's urgings. Again, I said Brendan Rivers. He also goes by Lord Bloodraven. He fights on the side of the Targaryens. And you'll notice that I also recircled Baelor and Makar. That's because they fight on the side of the Targaryens, obviously, and I guess you could call them heroes from the battle that they fight in. They are notable. There's one particular battle that they kind of work together to crush the enemy. I guess they kind of flank from either side. They're referred to as the hammer and the anvil.
It's almost done.
In that case.
Got like a minute
But yeah,
left.
I would just expect these types of people. Again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers. If they do want to get into this, I want them to get into most of it in the show. So without avoiding spoilers for what's going on there. But yeah, obviously Targaryens win the rebellion, or else we wouldn't be. It would be a different story we're seeing. So that's what's going on. And I will say one more time that while this rebellion is not relevant to the story at all, it is way more relevant to the next two novellas, so probably the next 2 seasons of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And for that reason, I expect them to be name dropping some of these people to lay the groundwork for the next 2 seasons.
It probably is important since it did happen fairly recently. That's going to have a heavy effect on how the people in the kingdom are
when you're watching the show.
behaving.
Thanks. Leave a like, leave a comment, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
It's the things they say and do. All right, so that's done. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. All right, now. All right, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about this episode, how I felt about it. I don't do the ranking the episodes or anything like that until the end of the season. The end of the season comes, I'll put them in order from like worst to least, or least favorite to most favorite, something like that. And then I usually will give some explanation about certain episodes, why I put them where I did. Especially if they're very low or very high on the list. So I really liked this episode. I liked it more than the last one. I thought the last one was a little slow. You know, there wasn't a lot going on. Yes, they were building the story. They were explaining what was happening and starting it up, but I felt like it was a little slow. Some of the comedy, I think, kind of missed me, at least the first time around. The second time around when I watched it, I got it better, so it was more funny to me. But yeah, this one, I thought it really did a good job. There was more going on. It was faster paced. The jokes were definitely hitting. Like everything was going pretty well. And, you know, you really got the story moving forward. You got, like, these important things that need to take place it's moving forward. Like, he's going to get his freaking armor and his shield done, which made me very happy, because I've read the books and I do remember some of that stuff. So it was nice to see stuff that I actually remember from the book and everything like that. Let me see. I really liked getting more of Arlen Pennytree's life, like what he was like what was going on in the time that he was squiring, that Dunk was his squire, and even a little bit of the time before he was his squire, because some of Dunk's information was also about what the knight had told him about in previous stories. So that was good. I felt like we got like a better build on some of the characters, I think, so that a little more meat to who they are as a person and how they behave as a person. Of course, not some of them, because some of them are just very shallow characters right now. But some of them we got more meat on in their story, so that was nice. I really enjoyed that. Let's see. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much I think everything that I wanted to cover for today, and we have another episode coming out on Monday, I believe. So I will see you next week on Tuesday. It should be so I switched things around this week, because usually I do a Handmaid's Tale reading around noon, and then I do this one around 3 p.m., 2 or 3 p.m. but my kid had an appointment, had an emergency appointment that I had to take them to, so I had to pull the Handmaid's Tale live stream back, and just decided to do this one around 2, and then I'm going to do the Handmaid's Tale live stream after this. Not right after, but probably in an hour or 2. So maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock. It depends on how much I get done today, because I got to do other stuff today other than just videos and live streams. So anyway, that is all I've got for you this week. I will see you next week around 2 or 3. I will try to put in a post letting people know when we're going to start this. I'm also going to start putting up a schedule that will show up during my stream starting. So I always put that stream starting page up with a 5-minute clock on the countdown, and while that clock is going, I usually try to check out my chats, which never seem to work right at the beginning. Sometimes I get them to work after I've posted a couple messages. Sometimes I don't. It always seems to work though after I leave the stream starting page, but sometimes it will work while I'm still on the stream starting page. Anyway, I figure while that 5-minute countdown is going, I can also put up a schedule so you can see what's going on currently, what I'm posting when. But anyway, that's all I got for you right now. I'll see you next week. Bye. Or if you want to watch Handmaid's Tale reading, that should be coming up in an hour or 2. So either way, I'll see you when I see you. Bye.